Once upon a time, two friends joined forces to bring you the best in horror entertainment. Brian from the north, Tim from the south, each bringing their own unique perspective to the horror community. Movie reviews, Blu-ray releases, beer pairings, games, and more. Welcome to your new home for horror. This is Civil Gore.
Hey there, everybody. Welcome to episode 142 of the Civil Gore podcast. I am your host, Tim.
And this is Brian. And even though you don't, by the time you're hearing this, is going to be a week later, but for those who go back in time, may the 4th be with you.
Yes, we were recording this on Star Wars Day, and Brian, I had an awesome day.
Nice.
So not only was it Star Wars Day, which I celebrated by starting the Clone Wars series, which I had never watched.
You're gonna love that. That has seriously some of the best Star Wars content ever, especially in the last couple of seasons when they really start to kind of pull it into the closer to the movies that because I mean there's a lot of like the first couple seasons it's out of order. It's a lot of they're kind of trying to just, give you some cool side stories. But then when they really try and bring it in to the trilogy, like the Mortis story arc is really good in there, with Darth Maul and everything. And then there's, but then later on, with like the last season that I just watched, I'm obviously not going to tell you so you can catch up, but the last 4 episodes of this last season, and you know me, I'm a big, huge Star Wars fan. These 4 episodes have been some rivals the movies in terms of how good the content is.
Yeah, well, that's what I had heard, and that's kind of why I wanted to start this, because people were going on and on about how good this last season was of Clone Wars. So I was like, man, I really need to catch up on this series because it sounds like incredible.
Yeah, have you watched Rebels too? Did you watch those?
I did watch how many seasons of Rebels were there?
4. There's 4 series of Rebels.
Okay, I think I watched at least the first 2, possibly the first 3.
Okay, yeah, because again, the last season of that really starts pulling it towards the storylines for the movies that well, and again, like that. I mean that whole series always had such great content, but the last season of that, holy cow, that really gets you. I mean, it's amazing how good Dave Filoni is for the Star Wars universe. And it's funny, I watched today, I started off that not to cut you off with your Star Wars Day thing, but I started to watch that the behind the scenes of the Mandalorian, like 8-part series, and Dave Filoni tells a story on how he got the job, and it's worth that first episode alone, and it shows why he got the job and how perfect he is to helm all this like these Star Wars animated and television series.
Oh, that's cool. Well, the other good thing that happened today was we found out Nicolas Cage will be starring in the Tiger King series.
Oh my god, can you imagine that? Oh, that is going to be so good. Do you think there'll be alpacas? Shouldn't he be the alpaca king though? Seriously?
He should, but I'm afraid it's just going to be tigers. They should sneak an alpaca in there just as a nod to Richard Stanley.
I haven't seen alpacas the same way since Color Out of Space, in all honesty.
I know. And then the final good thing that happened today was I sold my house.
Oh, you got it official.
I got it official.
Congratulations, Tim.
Literally, like 10 minutes before this podcast started, they accepted our offer.
See, and you heard my reaction live, too, because
That's right.
Last I heard, Tim was awaiting it.
I kept it a secret just for the podcast, so you can hear it live on the air. So, yes, we have to be out by June 5th.
Oh, that's not a lot of time, but I guess you kind of had, you kind of have to prepare anyway because because of the showings, you had to kind of have the house
right. Yeah, we've got most everything already packed up in storage, so it's not going to be that big a deal. I mean, we'll be moving furniture and stuff, but other than that, it's not a whole lot. So I think we'll be able to do it.
I think you can.
It was very, very exciting. A great day all around.
Nice. What was that from? Oh yeah, the Eugene Levy in American Pie 2. Remember, he's like, "Well, son, this is a good news day."
That's right. It is. Sometimes you get those every once in a while.
I quote that line. So out of all the things in the American Pie series, for some reason, that's the one I quote the most, and it's such a throwaway line at some level, but it cracks me up every time.
Well, we're big fans of all the throwaway lines, like fruit, please.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, if there's a line that has to go down. Like, and the fact is that just because it's not even just me and Tim, like that, like, my best friend Mark and I have been like quoting that line since it came out, and you said you quoted with Kevin all the time, right?
Yeah.
So I mean, think about that. It's like that line has been like two different, and somehow Tim and I came together years later to know that line now. So that line has got to be probably a line that the actor that uttered it doesn't remember it.
I know.
And yet there's four of us for sure that we know that keep that line alive, I'll tell you.
Oh my gosh. Well, guys, we have a fairly short first chop this week because we kind of recorded in very close succession. So not a whole lot of time for us to watch some stuff, but I did get two things watched. So we'll talk about it right here in our first chop. Okay, Brian. So, the Hammer Horror Project that I started last week continues, and I've got two more for the list today. Again, going in chronological order, 1956, X, The Unknown. This was the last film before, the last quote-unquote horror film before Hammer really got into the phase that we kind of know and love with the Universal type monsters.
Is it a math movie though? X the Unknown.
It sounds like a movie about algebra. Yeah,
and that's a big enough horror film for me. But
this one is a very straightforward sci-fi film that is very reminiscent of the American 50s sci-fi films that basically would have some kind of alien or some kind of monster brought about by something mankind was doing. And in this case, there is a sentient creature under the earth which basically resembles the Blob, and it comes to life. I can't remember if it was nuclear testing or what it was that caused this thing to come out of the ground, but whatever it was, it's enraged by humanity, and it comes to the surface to wreak its revenge. And it's, like I said, it's very straightforward. If you've seen any of those 50s monster movies from the US, you would be very familiar with this one. But what I was really surprised about, though, is how blob-like this was. And I don't know when, I'm going to look up right now when the actual original Blob came out. So the original Blob...
55 maybe?
58.
Oh, okay.
So this was actually just before, 3 years before the original Blob. And I'm telling you, there's sequences in here that look like straight out of the Blob. I mean, same kind of effects and everything. So I wonder if there was some influence there.
I'm sure there probably was.
Sure there was,
There had to have been, yeah.
But now we get to the gem. The next one on our list, The Curse of Frankenstein, 1957. Christopher Lee plays the creature. Peter Cushing plays Victor Frankenstein. And man, this one, oh my gosh. I just absolutely love this movie.
Did the box smell of lavender and linen by chance?
Oh, yes. No, I didn't have the box, unfortunately. I don't have the DVD. I had to rent it from Vudu. But Joshua actually watched this one with me.
Oh,
he was captivated. Awesome. He watched it from the beginning. He watched the whole movie with me. He absolutely loved it. And I was teaching him about Peter Cushing and teaching him about Christopher Lee and about the Frankenstein legend. And he was just a rapt audience. So I got my Father of the Year award.
Yeah. I know. Look at that. Now he's ready for Halloween Horror Nights whenever we get back there in 2028. Yeah.
But this one is it's such a good way to start off a Frankenstein franchise, because they basically take the original story that we know and love from the Universal pictures, but they kind of brought it up to date, and they told it in a little bit different way, just enough to make it interesting and entertaining, because it's not a rehash. It starts off with Peter Cushing as Victor Frankenstein is in prison because of what happened with his monster, and then he's telling the story of what happened to another gentleman. And he even goes back to his youth and how he got started in science. And he's got a partner that basically assisted him with his experiments and bringing the dead back to life. And he had a falling out with his partner. So there's all these little flavors that add to the history of the story that we kind of know and love, that made it really, really interesting and entertaining. But I wanted to give a little bit of a shout out to an actor in this movie, Melvin Hayes. He plays the young Victor Frankenstein when he's reminiscing about his youth. And this kid, well, he's a grown man. He's actually still alive, which is really cool. But Melvin Hayes went on to do tons of television, all kinds of TV series. But he played the young Peter Cushing in this movie, and I swear to God, you would think if Peter Cushing had ever been young, we know he was just born an older
Yeah, no,
guy.
he only had one age.
Yes, but if he had been a kid, I mean, this guy had his mannerisms and his speech and everything like dead on. It was so cool, and he's only in the movie for like maybe 5 to 10 minutes, and I was just enthralled because he was such a young Peter Cushing. It was so neat. So they did a really good job with.
So
the
did he
casting
sound
there.
like? Did he smell like lavender and crib linens?
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah, baby powder and linen. I
Yeah,
don't know.
baby. Did he have like superhero sheets linen?
Yeah,
like,
who
smell?
knows? Now, I'm not the hugest fan of the Frankenstein makeup in this movie because it's just a little messy. Christopher Lee he almost has like this gray gunk just pasted to his face. I've never been a real big fan of this makeup, but Christopher Lee's performance is so good, and it's fun to watch him choking the hell out of Peter Cushing because you just think about all the movies they were in together, and to just see them together on screen in the first Hammer production that they were in on screen together, and them choking the life out of each other and stuff. It was just really, really entertaining. Fantastic movie. The Curse of Frankenstein, 1957. If you haven't seen this one, it's an absolute gem. I will be buying this for my Blu-ray collection at some point. I think you can get it fairly inexpensively, under $20.
And is this in one of the Hammer sets, or is this a standalone one? I can't
This
remember.
one, this Blu-ray is standalone.
Okay.
I have not seen it in any of the twin packs that we've got a couple of those, Brian. The Hammer horror double features. It's not in those. There is one of the Frankensteins is in that set because I've got it.
Yeah, because I was gonna say I remember owning one of the Frankenstein ones. One of these days we'll have to sit there and go through our inventory in terms of like, because some of them sound so familiar, and it's like it's kind of, and obviously especially with the monolith that I have there, like it's easy to not realize which version you have.
The Hammer films are very similarly named. Like they have there's the Curse of Frankenstein. There's the Revenge of Frankenstein is the next one. You have the Evil of Frankenstein. You have you get a lot of that kind of generic sounding horror title, so it's easy to kind of get them mixed up.
Oh, I have Curse of the Werewolf. That's the one I have. It's in that 8-film one.
Oh yeah, I've got that.
That's the one. I knew I was like, I thought I had a curse of something in there.
Yeah, there's a Curse of the Werewolf. So next week, just to give you a little preview of what's coming up, we've got the next movie in the Quatermass series.
Oh.
We're going to get a one-off, The Abominable Snowman. So we're going to get a little Yeti action. And then coming up in the next couple weeks, we're going to have the first of the Christopher Lee Dracula movies with Horror of Dracula. So a lot of really, really, really good stuff coming up. So I'm very excited about this project now that I've been able to kind of track down some of these movies. And I think you guys are going to be really entertained by the reviews, especially if you're kind of following along with the project and watching them yourself. They're a lot of fun.
That sounds awesome, Mr. Timslow.
Now, the next one up, Brian, I had no idea that I had not read this. When you unveiled it, I was like, oh, I did not know that, but I'm going to let you talk about it.
Yeah, no, so this, and I know we kind of said we're not putting, we're not going to put stuff that we shared on social media as a repeat, but this literally, I found out like minutes before we started to record, and I had just shared it. So, but I do want to talk about it. So apparently, which I said there probably was going to be one of these just after reading it. So that book, Taking Shape, the one that I had gotten for Tim for the holidays, and that I got, and I read through it in no time because it was so amazing. They are doing a sequel. And now what I thought the sequel was going to be about, like I assumed they were going to be, wasn't so much a sequel as a volume 2 where they have all that you got in the first one and then has the subsequent Halloween Kills and Halloween Ends once that's done. So I figured we were like 3-4 years off from it and it was going to just include those new things. But what this is a true sequel where it goes into all the unmade Halloween movies that were rumored, that were either scripted and created. And so now they're going to focus. I mean, they touched on some of these in there in the original book where they kind of said, oh, this was the original plan. But this is now going to get chapters involving them. So they're like the Quentin Tarantino rumored one. There's a whole chapter on just that. So this, yeah. So and Tim, as excited you are now for it, wait till you start reading the first book, and you're gonna see what you get. That your mouth is just gonna water for the second one when you find out that they're gonna go into all the stuff that hasn't been made. So
oh my gosh, that sounds amazing.
Yeah, and like I said, I cannot say this enough. If you are a fan of the Halloween franchise, that book is not a luxury. It is a need.
It's a necessity.
It's that good. It is. It really is. It is the perfect companion to your fandom of that franchise. It is that good. I keep saying this. I got to reach out to those guys. I'd love to have those two guys that wrote that book on and talk to them about it, because it's just that good. So.
And it's not expensive. It's $22 for the paperback, and you can get the Kindle version for $10. Although I think you want the hardcover.
Yeah, no, I would want that one, the actual physical one. But yeah, I mean, if you're a Kindle person, that's how you want it, and you can get it for $10, go for it. But yeah, this is a must have, this book.
Well, speaking of Halloween, if you guys have not seen the video I posted on our Facebook page.
Oh, yeah, that's cool.
Of Tommy Lee Wallace takes a William Shatner mask and creates a shape mask before your very eyes, just like he did back on the original film. And I'm telling you, the finished product looks as good as any Michael Myers mask I've ever seen. And you're sitting there scratching your head going, why couldn't other people have done this for the sequels? I don't understand.
Yeah, like that one that looks like Millhouse that goes around. Some of those masks are just they're horrendous.
It's like why would you even attempt to try to improve or change upon it when you could just take a Shatner mask and redo it? I don't get it.
Yeah,
I mean, it was easy. It actually looked like something I could do.
I think you should try it, Tim. Maybe that's a project.
If I could get a hold of, the Shatner masks are probably outrageously priced alone now, because people are going to want to do that.
I know now, like all of a sudden these stores are like, did you order any more Shatner masks? We seem to have a run and a back order now.
Yeah, so there is if you look in the YouTube comments, they do tell you which mask that was, so you can get your hands on it. I have not priced it, but that would be a fun project. That would be a really, really fun project. So I guess that's it, Brian, for our first chop. We didn't have a whole lot to talk about there, but we do have a lot to talk about with our featured film, because this was a great one, and one that I think we could generate a pretty good discussion.
Yeah, because I mean, this is one of those. I mean, first of all, it's an anthology, and Tim and I love our anthologies.
Right. So we're talking, of course, about Dead of Night. This is from 1977. This is not to be confused with another anthology called Dead of Night that we've been threatening to do for a long time.
Yeah.
That one was from 1945. Brian and I both got our Blu-ray copies of that, so we probably need to do that one at some point.
Yeah, I think that's definitely one of these ones we need to put on the list for this year, I think, for sure.
Yeah, especially with us doing this one, I think it'd be a nice contrast. Dead of Night 1945 is actually one of my favorite anthologies of all time. It's an insanely good movie. But 1977's version, Dead of Night, which was a TV movie, is, I wouldn't say equally as good, but it is a very solid anthology. Now, one of the things that makes it such a solid anthology is that it was written primarily by Richard Matheson, who, in my mind, I was thinking about this, Brian, is probably like, he's like a modern day Edgar Allan Poe or a modern day Lovecraft. Like, I think years from now, when people look back on some of the greatest genre writers of all time, his name's going to be right up there. He's like a Ray Bradbury was to sci-fi.
Yeah, and I'll show you how important he is that in our trivia section, I segmented Richard Matheson trivia along with the movie trivia. So because I felt it was important to give some little pieces of trivia about him specifically, not just the movie in this case.
So this was directed by Dan Curtis, and it came out, again, like we said, a TV movie from 1977, and it stars some well-known names in here. The first feature is Second Chance, starring Ed Begley Jr. as Frank, E.J. Andre as Mr. Macaulay, Ann Doran as Mrs. Macaulay, and Christina Hart as Helen. The second segment, No Such Thing as a Vampire, stars Patrick McNee as Dr. Garia, Anjanette Corner as Alexis, Alicia Cook Jr. as Carol, and Horst Buchholz as Michael. You had to throw one tricky name in there for me.
Of course. Yeah.
And then the final segment, Bobby, stars Joan Hackett as the mother and Lee Montgomery as Bobby. So this anthology tells 3 stories, one of time travel, one of vampires, and one of a mother wishing her drowned son back to life. So we're going to go through these segments one by one.
Yep.
I think we're okay to do spoilers, Brian. This is an old movie.
Yeah, and in fact, it's the last story. Bobby, I think, was reused in Trilogy of Terror 2, and it's also it's a version of the Monkey's Paw, kind of, so to speak. So you'll know the story anyway. So really, in all honesty, nothing's a spoiler, and these are, as we'll get into, the stories are very familiar.
Yes. So the first one up, Second Chance. Now this one is not horror at all. We'll come right out and say it. This one,
This is very Twilight Zone-y. This is
very amazing stories too.
Also, it's that more that mystical, that wonder, that whimsical, but yet it fits perfectly in this anthology as a start to kind of let you know, kind of that you're in for a treat of a series of stories here.
Yeah, I think even the intro says something about. There's a narrator at the beginning that says something about the stories you're about to hear. One of, I can't remember the exact wording, but it's like one of adventure, one of thrills, and one of terror or something.
Yeah,
so they kind of
like
set you up
like
for
a little
it.
thing. Yeah.
So so Ed Begley Jr. Plays this a young Ed Begley Jr., which is kind of neat to see. But he plays a man who is a car enthusiast, an old car enthusiast, and he ends up purchasing this old car. I don't remember the model of it, but an old like 20s or 30s style car that's kind of dilapidated. He buys it from an old man and to restore it and fix it up, which I actually love because that's been one of my dreams. I know nothing about cars, but one of my dreams has always been to restore an old car. I don't know how I do it.
You just want the experience. You don't care about the know-how, right?
Yeah, I mean, that's the problem. It's like, I wish I could buy an old car and restore it, but the middle part is the section I'm having.
Yeah, there's so many things I see that I'm like, you know what? Oh my God, that looks like so much fun. I'd love to do that. I have no idea how I'm going to do it. I just like to do it, like same thing with like restoring a boat. Like when you see people restore boats in movies, and like it seems like they just manifest this skill by pure will alone. But like, and I'm like, that looks like that's easy. Sure enough, I could do that. And then again, like I think to myself, and like I used to need help with like checking my oil, finding the dipstick. So I'm like, I am nowhere near the Ed Begley Jr. level of car restoration yet.
Well, I know people that have restored cars. In fact, Livia's brother restores cars, but these are people that have worked on cars all their life.
Oh, okay.
So, it's like, it would be like, now, if you wanted me to restore a computer, I could do that, but so, yeah.
And I can break a computer, so that's perfect. That's why Tim and I get along so well.
That's why we make a good pair.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I really enjoyed that aspect of it because I love seeing old things restored in these movies. And, of course, they make it look so easy, but it has this folksy charm because Ed Begley Jr. is narrating the whole thing while he's kind of doing it. So he's like, and I got the car parts from the blah, 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 and I put it up together, and I hammered out every dent, and I painted. And it has this warm, folksy feeling to it.
Yeah, like it makes you like, you feel like you were there along with him for the ride. No pun intended there. Yeah.
So anyway, he fixes his car up, and then he decides to take it out on the town. He can't take it on the highway because these things couldn't go as fast as a highway speed back in those days. So he takes it kind of on a back country road downtown. And at some point in his travel, he realizes that he has slipped back into the 20s.
Right.
I think it was the 20s, right, Brian? Yeah, 26, 1926, I think, yes.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah, so he slips back into the 20s, and all of a sudden now all the cars around him are from the 20s. He's slipped into another time period.
Yeah, and actually, real quick about that, what I loved about that is how he said, and he refers to it in a line when he does it, but like how he, right before he left, I guess, because it's so funny because you think of Ed Begley Jr. as like this like, because most people have seen him as an adult, but you forget he's literally like supposed to be a college student in this because he's living with his mother, and I said, oh, Ed Begley, you didn't move out of your house yet, but then I realized, oh wait, no, he's like 17 or 18 here. He's just a youthful lad here that wants to restore. But I mean, he says something where she goes, "Oh, why don't you take the highway? It's much faster." And he goes, "No, I got to take the roadway, which at this time this car was around was the highway. And I'm just like, he totally romanticizes the whole thing in like one line of dialogue. And that's what this whole tale I think does so well. It kind of, it gives you that like whole feeling of why he wanted to restore the car in the first place and what joy he gets out of it.
Yeah. So now Ed Begley Jr. We keep calling him Ed Begley Jr. His name is Frank in the movie.
I know, but he's so Ed Begley. By the way, speaking of Ed Begley Jr., I have the perfect scent for him.
Oh,
I think he smells like a hand cream with a little hint of spearmint.
Yeah. Oh, that's very good.
Right? Don't you see that? Like he's got that generic hand cream smell, but he's got that added little bit of spearmint.
Where Brian and I are going to start an Instagram series, I think, of celebrities and what we think they smell like.
Yeah, I mean, we've always talked about the show, and it all spawned because of some random, and I texted to Tim, I said, this is when quarantine brains are, affecting everybody. Some guy on Twitter, I forgot his name, I apologize, I doubt he listens to the show, but if he does, I apologize for not giving you full credit, but if I find it, I'll let you know, where he decided, I don't know where he got this, but he decided to pair Michelle Pfeiffer's rolls with a snack cake. So it was like her role in as the pink as Pink Lady in Grease 2 with the Twinkie, with the limited edition Twinkie with strawberry filling. And then, she can go from there. Like her Fabulous Baker Boy roll was like this little Debbie Red Hot cake or something. It was just a lot. I'm like, oh my God. And I found myself scrolling through it. Like he had about 8 or 9 of these things. So then I started sending to Tim. We had some ideas and Tim's like, well, why don't we just do our scent pairing? So I kind of made some mock-ups and sent it to him and away we're going. So look, if it's not appearing by the time you hear this episode, it will be appearing shortly. Cause I think I want a couple in the, a good 6 or 7 in the bank so we could do that.
Yeah. We'll have to come up with some, Brian. You can use your Photoshop skills to knock those out. We've already got 2 or 3.
Yeah. I think I got 2 or 3. I think I have 2 and then I have a third I didn't finish yet, but yeah. So this will be funny. So that'll be our new Instagram series. And then what we could do is actually we'll hashtag them, and anyone obviously that has has any other ideas for things that we miss, send it using that hashtag and we'll get it going.
All right. So I'm going to let Brian explain the plot of this one because I was attempting to try to formulate it in my brain and my quarantine brain's not working because this involves time travel. And there's a very neat twist. It's a cool twist and paradox, but I don't want to screw it up. So I'm going to let Brian do it because he does it much better than I do.
Yeah, I'll try now with the pressure on. But because as I said, it's very Twilight Zone-y. And there was an episode of the Twilight Zone that was kind of similar. It's almost like a little bit of Back to the Future kind of thing. There's almost like a reverse butterfly effect. Usually things happen and then it ends up feeling the worst when you change it. This one, it's kind of like the better. So what happens is in the beginning of this episode, Ed Begley is I guess finds out about this car that he loves. It's like a 1926. I forget the name of the car, but it's supposedly really coveted rare car that car aficionados really seem to go after. And so he finds some farmer that has one. And he's like, wow, where did you get this? And he's like, well, there's an old couple that had this car and they decided to, race a train. They decided to kind of go past the train and kind of cut across at the railroad crossing, but they didn't make it, and the car flipped, killing them instantly, and the car was in shambles, and I guess he picked it up and brought it in to his barn, and Ed Begley Jr. found it, decided to purchase it from him and restore it, like Tim said, and so then when he goes off on his drive and he ends up going back in time into 1926, he pulls up and gets out of the car, is walking around the town, just looking around, and then he sees his car that he just restored being driven away. And so he goes running after these people, and he's like, hey, that's my car. And he jumps in front of the car, stopping it briefly for a second, pausing their thing, and he goes, get out of the way, you crazy person. And then the car drives off. So then he encounters this other couple who kind of says oh, do we need to call the police? Did he steal your car? And he says, no, it's okay. It's, it's fine. Because he realizes that he's really not supposed to be there. And, it's most likely it was the same car. So he goes and falls asleep, wakes up, at this house, and he's back in his own time. So then it kind of jumps ahead a little bit to where now he is dating this girl that he met, that he says that he says he doesn't remember seeing her at his college any time before this event happened. So he's going with her, and he's going, I guess, to her grandparents for lunch, and they get into talking. He's like, "Oh, I hear you restore old cars." And they get into the conversation. He goes, "Well, I'll tell you what, let me show you this." So they go over there, and turns out that exact car is sitting in his driveway. In the guy's barn. He's like, "Yeah," he goes, "I'll tell you what, you fix it up for me. I just want one ride in this thing, and then it's yours." So he asks him, what happened to the car in the first place. And he said, so he basically said that he was, he said, just be careful with it because, it'll be better, it'll be safer than what we did on our wedding night. And he's, he questions, he says, "What do you mean?" He goes, "Well, and like the wife says, well, my husband decided it'd be fun to race a train on our wedding night. And, and then so we went and he tells the whole story about how the same story that Ed Begley Jr. or Frank heard the night he got the original version of this car. And so he basically so he says, "Wait a minute." He goes, "So what by chance did anyone but so what happened is, sorry, I almost skipped the most important part. So anyway, they decided that when they got up and they were trying to race the train, they just realized they were just a few seconds short of trying to get across the track. So they just decided to pull off and not race the train anymore." So he says, so he has this aha moment, and he says, "Wait a minute." He goes, "By chance, did somebody maybe delay you for any period of time? Did you did someone jump out?" And they said, and the guy, they're trying to remember, and they said, "No, I don't remember," but Ed Begley Jr. remembers. And what he realizes is that couple that he went chasing after was the same couple that crashed on their wedding night and was killed. And that's how he got the first car. But what he did is, by him chasing after and blocking them for that few seconds, made all the difference for them to reassess that decision they had to race a train, which led to them not dying, obviously, having a child who then in turn had another child who turned out to be Ed Begley Jr.'s future wife-to-be that he met. And that's why he had never seen her at the college anymore. So when he did that whole thing, he ended up twisting time around and basically changing not only that couple's life, but his own. So it's kind of like one of those cool little things, and it shows off that and it ends in a nice note with him driving off just married in their brand new restored car. It
was a very heartwarming story. It really has no place in a horror anthology, let's be honest. But I found it really charming.
Yeah, but this is one of those horror anthologies where I think it's more of a mystical thing. Like, it's very Twilight Zone-ish, where you remember how Twilight Zones were supposed to always have some sort of horror element to it, and some just didn't have it, but they had this kind of a thing to it. And that's why I liked it. And it makes sense, because I will jump ahead, because one of the Richard Matheson trivia, though, is that because he actually was one of the few writers that collaborated with Rod Serling on the original Twilight Zones. So that, there weren't that many. It was mostly a lot of his stories, Rod Serling stories. But Richard Matheson was one of the writers that did some stories there. So that makes sense that this was very, very Twilight Zone-esque and could have easily been on an episode.
Now, the second segment, No Such Thing as a Vampire, I actually really like this one, although it's a little bit of a trifle compared to the
it's like that typical middle.
It's very short
anthology story, where it's like they kind of, but if you think about it, it kind of like fits in terms of theme, where it's like it's horror, but not the kind of horror you think.
Yeah, it's not like super scary. In fact, the best thing I could sum this up, this is ripped straight out of an EC comic.
Yes. Oh my God, is it ever? It's like Tales from the Crypt. It could have fit in perfectly.
Yeah, that I could just, when I was watching this segment, I was like, oh my gosh, I could almost see the comic book pages laid out.
Yep.
Flipping through this comic. It has the same pacing and everything.
Same premise, like, that lesson, so to speak, that they all
you know how all the EC comics, it was always a cheating wife or a cheating husband or somebody being bad and they're getting their comeuppance, all that kind of stuff.
That and country songs always seem to have those things.
Yeah. So Anjanette Corner plays this woman, Alexis, who seems to be being terrorized by a vampire or victimized by a vampire. And this one kind of takes place in one of those interesting universal, I call it the universal horror time period, where you can't really tell like what year this is supposed to take place in. It's like some nebulous year in some nebulous country.
It looks like it was filmed on Universal Studios backlot also. I swear it must have been. I meant to look that up. I need to check that. If someone knows that for a fact, and let us know.
So Patrick Macnee plays her husband, and he's trying to take care of her. And he brings in a friend, Michael, played by Horst Buchholz, which we have fun with that name, to assist him with helping his wife. And she's weak. She's laying in bed, and the servants are kind of letting on what's going on with this woman, and the gossip's getting out around to the townspeople, and there's talk that there's a vampire involved. And that she's being drained of blood. They're putting garlic around her neck and all this stuff. And it's kind of a little bit of a slow burn. Even though it's a short segment, it starts off with a little bit of slow burn where you're not really quite sure what's going on. But the big twist is when you find out that Alexis has been cheating on her husband with Michael, and he has come up with an absolutely brilliant, albeit convoluted,
a little bit, but
plot to get rid of him, in which he is basically drawing blood from Alexis, and he ends up framing Michael as a vampire by drawing her blood, knocking Michael out, putting him in a coffin, squirting his wife's blood into his mouth. And I must say I was really impressed with the guy that played the servant or assistant that ended up killing Michael.
Oh my God, he was hilarious. Yeah.
He was absolutely great. And so again, like I said, it's a little bit of a convoluted plot, but it was a neat setup in how he basically offs his wife's lover by framing him to be a vampire and setting up his assistant to basically be the one to quote unquote discover the vampire and take care of him. Again, right out of the EC Horror Comics. I thought it was a neat little twist and kind of a fun little segment.
Yeah, like, and you know, especially because you think you're getting like a vampire tale and you don't. You're not getting that at all, you know.
Right. It's a fake vampire tale, which is kind of neat. It's kind of a neat twist because you expect it to play it straight and they don't. They twist it on you. But the last one is the real doozy. The last one is the one that this movie is probably the most famous for.
Yeah.
And the one that really packs the punch, rightfully saved for the end, which is where all good anthologies' best segment should be.
Yeah.
And this one is called Bobby. And the first thing, Brian, I would imagine you probably had the same thought, that this premise reminded you of a modern movie that we've actually covered on this podcast, and that was A Dark Song.
Oh, yeah.
Because in A Dark Song, we had a mother who, grieving the loss of her child, engages in a ritualistic magic ritual to try to bring her son back from the dead, to communicate with him one last time. It's a great movie if you haven't seen it.
Yeah, and KK Sam did it too. It was kind of divisive. Some people don't like it. I thought it was really good because I loved how it so quote unquote realistically portrayed magic. Yeah.
Like not some easy thing to do. It was really, really complex and convoluted, and it took months to do this ritual, and it was really creepy. But this movie is the same setup, the segment. This woman, her son Bobby drowned. So we start off the segment with she's creating a big circle.
A very good one. It almost looks like it was done by like someone who does like a basketball court. It was like the perfect
really
lines. It was like, I was like, did you get like the people from like the Madison Square Garden there to come over and like make that for you? Because it's way too professional looking.
Yes, she creates this ritualistic circle in the middle of her living room, and she does this spell to summon her son back. And as you might expect, he does return. And this was so well done. This section is so creepy.
It's got a creepy crapbag kid, as Kim and Ket would say.
Yeah, the kid is creepy to begin with,
and he's got a robe. Kids and robes. No bathrobes for kids. They look too creepy.
I would say he's not particularly creepy in terms of like some creepy kids you see.
No, because he's older. He's a little older, but like he's a creepy kid like the ones in like Salem's Lot, like that kind of creepy kid.
And the circumstances he's in makes him more creepy than he would be if you actually saw him out on the street.
Oh yeah, he's like a normal looking kid. Yeah.
Yeah. So, but he comes back. He's all wet. It's raining outside. He's wet, so he's kind of reminiscent of him drowning. And she brings him inside and tries to get him warmed up and get some food in him and all that kind of stuff. But he starts acting weird from the beginning. As you know, after watching Pet Sematary, sometimes dead is better.
Sometimes dead is better. Yeah, I gotta love to say that.
Any time you bring somebody back from the dead, they're probably going to be a little off in the head. And Bobby is no exception. So he starts off kind of mild, just saying some things to his mom that she doesn't exactly like, and basically being a little brat. But this then escalates into probably the most terrifying game of hide and seek I've seen on film in a long time.
Yeah, it gets really like just a laugh that he does. Oh God, that's kind of creepy.
Yeah, he decides to he basically decides to turn their house into a game of hide and seek with his mother. And one thing I thought about, Brian, as a parent, was how this segment illustrated sometimes the terror a parent has for their child or has of their child. And I was trying to come up with a way to say it, because obviously I'm not scared of my kids, but I think there's some like subconscious fear because they're going to be your replacement, and they're youthful, and there's some kind of there is some kind of I think there is some kind of subconscious primal fear of your young and what they could do to you and your own mortality. There's something there to be said about that. I'm probably not putting it in the right words.
I kind of get what you mean, though. Yeah.
Yeah, but watching this segment, it really made me think about how that's being portrayed on the screen as a parent terrified of their child. And kids are creepy, even in the horror movies and stuff. I think there's something to that because they're the ones with the youth, and they kind of have a power over parents because while your kids are helpless and you're having to take care of them, that also causes a kind of a power that they have over you. And that's kind of terrifying in some subconscious way. So that's what I kind of thought about while I was watching this. But yeah, they get into this big game of hide and seek. There's a terrifying sequence where she gets stuck in a closet and Bobby is basically pinning her down in this closet. And I knew this was going to happen. I'd seen this movie before. It's been so long I'd forgotten this part. But I knew he was going to fake. You know how when you used to play hide and seek and you're trying to fake out that you don't know where the person's hiding.
Yeah.
And so you like stomp real loud like you're going off, and then you like quietly creep back to right where they're at.
Yeah.
But he kind of does one of those moves, and it has a really big jump scare. And it was really, really fun. That was great. And but you start to realize during this segment that Bobby is not who he says he is. And we find out another twist about the circumstances of his drowning and why he might be angry at his mother.
Yeah.
And it culminates with a terrifying reveal of what Bobby really is, which it's not much of a spoiler since it's basically the cover art.
Yeah, depending on which poster you look at. Yeah.
Yeah, but it's a terrifying final sequence, and I just really, really love this one. This segment was so good, and again, we're skipping ahead to the trivia a little bit. The segment was so good, it was actually recast and redone for the Trilogy of Terror 2.
Yeah, movie. And but you've seen this tale. This is like, that it's very reminiscent, like I said earlier, of The Monkey's Paw. Even a little bit of Pet Sematary, of course. I mean, there's definitely that tale of, how it's the old that same old like warning you get, if someone died, they're not coming back the same way regardless. I mean, how many movies have shown that? It's like, so it's like,
yeah.
But yeah, people still try to bring people back, but But yeah, while it's a familiar tale, it's like this one is done so well, especially for a TV movie at the time, and it's like,
Yeah, it was very scary.
yeah, and it's funny because you could, like, before I realized it was a TV movie, though, I'm like, you kind of sense it is because it has those fade outs, like to where a commercial would go. It's kind of funny,
It does, and it has, and the segments are actually titled.
Yeah,
and it comes up with like the TV font of the title for each segment, which I thought was definitely very reminiscent of a TV movie.
Yeah, but it does. That's not a detriment to it in any way because they do it.
No.
I mean, like Salem's Lot, right? Like, there's still one of, to me, but it has probably the most terrifying thing I've seen on film, which was that where the friend peers at the window after he's been vampired, and that was a TV movie. So it's like, just because it's on, it's made for television does not mean it shows that you could get plenty of scares out of, not an R-rated content, basically.
The Woman in Black original BBC movie is utterly terrifying.
Oh, I gotta see
that. Not the Daniel Radcliffe.
Yeah.
This one was 1987, and it has arguably one of the biggest jump scares I've ever seen.
Oh.
And in fact, I was on the Facebook horror movie group, and somebody had posted the question, "What's the best jump scare you've ever seen?" And I posted that one from Woman in Black because that's the one that made me flip over the back of the couch, basically. And Ken knows which one I'm talking about, and because he's the one that introduced me to that movie. Thanks, Ken.
Yeah.
And I how in Facebook when you're posting and you hit post and you see somebody else commenting, like right as I had posted, another girl had posted the exact same scene.
Oh my God, that's funny.
And so then I was like, I gotta go see this. I gotta go look it up on YouTube to see if it's as scary as I remember. So I looked it up on YouTube, and you know what they said? They titled the clip "That Scene."
Oh my God, I gotta see this.
So it's multiple people have. Now I will say, don't watch it on YouTube because it's not as scary without the context and the build up. You have to watch the whole movie.
Oh yeah, no, I figured. Hey, I want to see that movie. See, I always put I think my biggest jump scare ever was the Exorcist 3 one, which is another one that a lot of people
like
yeah.
that one, yeah.
Because that Exorcist 3 is, I'm telling you, that's no joke. In terms,
we're gonna do that one at some point.
Yeah, well, we have that on the Summer Slaycation list of the full Exorcist, the rest of them. So we got to do that. Yeah. So I think we have it right now. We have it scheduled for this summer. I think. I don't know if we're still gonna go to it, but so I have some other ideas maybe to bump it. I do know that two of them we're definitely doing, but I don't know if Exorcist will do or maybe wait, because I think, isn't there like another thing coming out for it? I don't know. There's something we thought maybe we'd incorporate it with the full series or something, so we need some more time.
Yeah, we'll have to see. Yeah, we'll see. Let's go through some of the trivia here. We had already touched on a couple of these. According to producer Roger Corman, Matheson's scripts were so good that Corman usually used the first draft with a minimum of rewrites. And I can believe it, because Richard Matheson was just such a fantastic author.
Yeah.
And in multiple genres. I mean, he did fantasy. He did touched on sci-fi, horror. I mean, he could do all.
Oh yeah. So here's really something interesting. He said he claimed that the film that came closest to capturing the spirit of his novel I Am Legend was Night of the Living Dead from 1968, the original version of that. It says even though that film was not an intentional adaptation of his book. Mm-hmm. So go figure, right? Look at that.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
It says here one of Stephen King's favorite writers, which is not a surprise.
And this one's a shocker to me, but it goes, I guess, with the sci-fi-ish element. It says his short story Steel was the first inspiration for the screenplay Real Steel, that Hugh Jackman vehicle.
Huh. Interesting.
Yeah.
So this is some trivia more about the actual movie. We already mentioned about the Bobby segment later being reused in Trilogy of Terror 2, but I'll let Brian talk about the other place it was used. First up, the incidental music at the beginning of the film is borrowed from a failed pilot of the same name that Dan Curtis produced in 1969.
And here's kind of what we touched on already, but this gives a little bit more into it. It says, so the final part of Dead of Night, Bobby, is a version of the W.W. Jacobs story, the Monkey's Paw, which I heard as a kid, and it used to always frighten me. I tell you, that story.
Yeah, that's a terrifying story.
Yeah, especially the way I was like, because there was variations of it, with like the little bit, changes on who tells it to you, but I remember being told it, and I just it traumatized me as a kid. But then it says a previous version was made in 1974, also under the title Dead of Night, and this was directed by Bob Clark. So that's a full version of that one, I guess. So interesting.
Yeah. It's worth pointing out too that Dan Curtis he did the House of Dark Shadows movie. He did 20 episodes of Dark Shadows. He did Night of Dark Shadows in 1971. And had just a bunch of horror TV movie credits. Scream of the Wolf, Dracula, The Turn of the Screw, Trilogy of Terror, of course, Trilogy of Terror 2, the fantastic Burnt Offerings, if you guys have never seen that. That's a great film from 1976. Curse of the Black Widow. So this guy, man, Dan Curtis he's definitely a horror director. He's got some other non-horror type stuff he did. Yeah. But he has some fantastic horror credit. All right, Brian, so what did we come up with the beer pairing this week?
So, believe it or not, I actually found a beer titled Dead of Night.
Nice.
And this is from Backcountry Brewing from Squamish, British Columbia. So
that sounds like it has Sasquatches.
It does. I don't know. It makes you a little squamish about drinking it. Oh, that was bad. Okay. It's 6.6 ABV, and so it's hopped with 2018 Galaxy. This IPA beer punches through with the big dank pineapple notes that we have come to know and love from this hop. So that's actually one probably that you like. I don't see. So Julie and I tend to like our two favorite hops are Citra and Mosaic, but probably right behind that is Galaxy hops, and it's because of that pineapple-y note. Like, remember that one we all tried at Busch Gardens that we all loved from, like, I think it was Apocalypse Brewing? Is that really I guarantee you this used that Galaxy hop, because Galaxy hop tends to have that really good pineapple-y flavor, so that could be that. So.
All right, so last week we were looking for a writer-director. Now, because we're recording this episode literally the day that the last week's episode came out, we don't have any way to tell if anybody had any correct answers.
Yeah, I'm sure there are probably a lot of people will get this, though.
Yeah, so we'll go ahead and give you the answer. The answer was Jordan Peele. So clue number 1, my first major foray into horror films, audience did the exact opposite of the title. Well, they did the exact opposite of Getting Out.
Yeah.
This is, of course, referring to Get Out, which had a very impressive run for a horror film with a worldwide gross of over $270 million. And Brian, I had just seen on one of my Facebook threads that there's a French horror film called Get In.
Really?
Yeah, no relation. It's a French title, but I just thought it was funny because I was thinking about this clue when I read that.
Yeah. I thought this was a good clue. It's very, it's like
very clever. Yeah, I liked it.
If I do say so myself, but thank you, Tim.
Clue number 2. So while my solo career is pretty impressive, one of my frequent collaborators is a key to my success.
I got punny there.
Yeah, this is some wordplay to George's longtime comedy partner, Keegan-Michael Key. And clue number 3, while I'm now an established writer and director, I have a large number of acting roles, starting in a well-known sketch comedy television show. Of course, Jordan Peele's first acting role was on Mad TV, where he was hilarious.
Yes.
So now, this week, we got a new one for you. This one steps it up quite a bit. We gave you a couple softballs in a row.
And I will say this was as a suggestion of our good buddy Cone. Actually, he had said this might be a good, because he had given me one of the clues, and he's like, hey, that might be a good one. And I said, you know what, that is a good one. Let me see. And since we were struggling because we were recording back to back, I thought we were going to record yesterday. So it was fresh on my mind. So I whipped up this, so Cone, you can't play, obviously, because you know what I'm talking about. But so I whipped up this one really quickly, and it turned out the other clues I came up with actually make this one a pretty decent, challenging one. So I like this one, actually. So this is good. So thanks, Cone.
Yeah, just reading through this one, this is a very well-constructed one, Brian. I think this is a really good one.
Well, thank you.
So, all right. So we're looking for an actor or actress. Listen closely. Clue number 1. I have had roles in films where I have fought zombies and also ones where I became one. Clue number 2. My first acting performance was in an ad for a well-known store, which is sadly now defunct. Or essentially defunct.
Yeah, depending on how you want to look at it.
And clue number 3, I'm going to give you some numbers on this one. I'll give you a little extra hint on this one. I seem to co-star in films with actors who play DC movie villains, and I counted here in Brian's notes, 4?
4 or 5, maybe. 1, 2,
maybe 4 or 5. Yeah.
3.
4.
Oh, no, it is 4 right now, yeah.
Okay, so 4 films that this person co-starred in with actors who played DC movie villains. That's an interesting.
Yeah, and there's actually which we'll go into next week when we give the answer to this. There's actually one that could be possibly considered a fifth one, although the character is not so much a villain but more of an antagonist. So it's funny. I was running it by Julie. I'm like, what would you think? And so she said, well, she's like, sees why we could lean that way, but we didn't. So I left that one out. So there could be a possible fifth one.
Cool.
So.
Okay, well, that's a great clue.
Yeah.
That's a really good one. So guys, yeah, actor or actress, and we'll have to post those clues on social media so you can read them. And that brings us to our Zubmondo question of the week.
Yes, and I have a good picked one, and this one's a weird. I'm stepping these up too, Tim, and giving us a real challenging one here.
Okay, good.
So
good.
It says, would you rather find out that your neighbor installed a camera years ago that has taped everything that's gone on in your bedroom, or your bathroom?
Ooh. Oh man, I've got to go. I've got to go with the bathroom. I would much rather people know what went on in the bathroom, because the bathroom is basically just using the bathroom.
Yeah, same here. I mean, pretty much, yeah. I mean, sure, there's probably a lot of nudity involved in the bathroom in terms of like showers and stuff, but I mean, really, most of the time, I mean, you'll see me like either like reading the Halloween book in there.
Yeah, I mean, it would be pretty much what you expect, but the bedroom, I mean, I do have 2 kids, Brian.
That's true.
And I've been married for 18 years today. So
yes, happy anniversary.
Yeah, thank you. But there's been some things going on in that bedroom. I'm just gonna say. I'm not gonna lie.
Of course, yeah. I mean, that's why, and and also it's like, I mean, as klutzy as I am, I can't even tell you how many times I've tripped and fallen in my bedroom on like laundry that hasn't been put away yet. So it's like, yeah, and then God knows what like I look like as if I'm sleeping, or if I have a nightmare or do something. But who knows? Because you're not conscious. Like for some reason in my bathroom, I'm kind of like, I kind of can recollect the majority of what happens in there, because like you said, it's usually using the bathroom, either showering or getting ready. I mean, yeah, maybe the most embarrassing thing is us like kind of like maybe primping a little too much or something with our hair, maybe.
Maybe a really bad taco night. I don't know.
Stuff like that, or like yeah. But most of the time, I'm like, it's like I use that time. I'll grab a book or a magazine, and that's pretty much it. So if you guys want to, you really felt the time to, and plus I change it up too, because we have 2 bathrooms in my apartment, so sometimes I'll use different ones. So good luck trying to catch me at the right time, anyway. But
that's right. Yeah, we have multiple bathrooms.
Yeah,
so I could be
it's like
one of 3.
Yeah, so it's like there could be like a lot of raw footage of nothing in your bathroom. But yeah. But anyway, yeah. So I agree with Tim on that one. I figure I'd pick the bathroom too.
Yeah,
so.
That's funny. That's a good one.
So, and there's 3 different factoids on this one, so they really put it up. So it says, and this is a quote by Joan Rivers, and I should try and do it in a Joan Rivers voice, but since I haven't practiced it, I don't know how to do it, but I'll try. So it says, I caused my husband's heart attack. In the middle of lovemaking, I took the paper bag off my head. He dropped the Polaroid and kneeled over, and so did the hooker. It would have taken me half an hour to untie myself and call the paramedics, but fortunately the Great Dane could dial. That doesn't make any sense. What the heck?
I don't know. But it was pretty good. That's pretty good for a like first try.
Yeah, I haven't really. I used to do Joan Rivers a lot, actually. Can we talk? But I haven't done it in ages, and so. But yeah,
you got the New York accent for it.
Yeah, I have like the basis already, but
yeah.
But basically, I'm gonna read that regular real quick, just so you can maybe catch what she was saying. So she says, I caused my husband's heart attack. In the middle of lovemaking, I took the paper bag off my head. He dropped the Polaroid and keeled over, and so did the hooker. It would have taken me half an hour to untie myself and call the paramedics, but unfortunately the Great Dane could dial. So there's a lot going on in that sentence. I don't know.
I mean, okay, so paper bag, okay, she's saying she's ugly, okay.
Which was her self-depreciation.
Then there's a hooker involved. Okay, that's kind of funny.
Yeah, she's
Great Dane's kind of creepy. I don't know.
Yeah, because she was what did you say?
Yeah, deprecating.
Deprecating herself.
So. I don't know what the Polaroid has to do with it, and I'm very concerned.
Oh, the Polaroid camera. She probably meant like she probably dropped the Polaroid camera, like so he was taking pictures of it all. I guess.
Okay.
I don't know. That
I
was
don't-
not that funny. That was not Joe Rivers I thought was always a brilliant comedian. So this was just not one of her best, apparently.
Maybe it probably loses something. You probably have to have her delivery.
Yeah,
really
she probably her
sell the joke,
tonations and her
Yeah.
pausing and right. So
Uh-huh.
then it says when film director Billy Wilde went to Europe for the opening of Some Like It Hot, his wife asked him to send back the Charvet ties for a friend and a bidet for herself. A couple of weeks later, Wilder cabled from France. Charvet ties on the way, but impossible to obtain bidet. Suggest handstand in shower. What? What are with these things? I don't. Ties on the way.
well-
Suggest a handstand in the shower. I don't get it.
I guess to clean yourself, just do a handstand in the shower.
For the
thing.
tie,
I don't know about the ties. The ties, I think, are irrelevant.
Charvet ties on the way, but
Or maybe I'm just too tired to understand these jokes.
I think it might be the tire thing. Okay, there's one more. It says in 1994, a Michigan man, after being convicted of secretly videotaping people using his bathroom, served 75 days in jail. Interesting. Actually, it's funny about that little tale because there was always I had this list one time of great practical jokes to do at parties, and one of them was what you do is you have to do a little bit of a prep for this one. So what you do is you literally take a video camera. Now obviously your cell phone you can do it on. You tape about like a minute and a half of your empty bathroom.
Mhm.
And then what you do is when someone who you want to prank at your party or just any kind of guest goes into the bathroom, you gather everyone else around, pop the recording in of the empty bathroom in there. So when the person comes out, you hit play right before they come out and you just see everyone else laughing. So as if that you actually did
That's
watch
great.
them in the bathroom. So so then they have this usual panic look on their face like, oh my God. So you'll know if they did something really bad or really embarrassing or just gets
Oh, that's
embarrassing
great.
at
I
being
like that.
seen. So
There was a documentary, and I wish I could remember the name of it, guys. I'm sorry. I watched it a while back about this man who owned this hotel.
oh yeah, Julie
Did you
watched
see that?
Yeah. That thing is nuts.
Yeah, he basically had a crawl space above all the rooms in the hotel, and he created peepholes so he could spy on every guest in the hotel.
Yeah, and he had that friend of his who was the journalist come.
Yeah.
Yeah, we watched that. That thing is
It was
crazy.
weird. And he got away with it.
Yeah.
Like, there was no repercussions. I don't think he ever went to jail for it or anything.
Well, I think because he admitted it so many years after the
the statute of limitations
yeah,
had
it was
run
gone.
out, so it
But I
didn't
think
matter.
they were still trying to get him. I don't know.
I don't know.
I don't-
He got away with it, though. He watched these people for years and years and years.
Yeah, I'll tell you, these documentaries like that, it's like they're not all on Netflix, obviously, but Netflix, once they started, like if you look, like they just totally up their games with what documentaries are like now with these multi-part
Yeah,
documentaries.
they're
Like
really
if you watch
fascinating.
like McMillions, like that thing goes off
Yeah.
the rails like 8 different times. You get
That was
into
a
these
great
stories.
movie. That was a great
Yeah, and of
documentary.
course, obviously, Tiger King is the best example of a documentary that like starts as one thing and then you don't even know what to expect on it and it just goes off the wall. But yeah, like I've noticed so many multi-part documentaries are like that now. This one I think was one part, but
Yeah.
but still it like had that same like style of where it's like like all these different little twists and turns in it. It's like they need to now make the documentaries themselves like not just straightforward anymore. They always have like they go back and add and really like pad it with a lot of cool
Oh, here it is. It's if you guys want to watch it, it's called Voyeur. That's on
right.
Netflix. Yeah.
That guy's creepy. Oh
So, Brian, I don't know what we're doing next week.
yeah, we'll have to look into
So-
it. Yeah, because it's so
Well-
fun because with these back-to-back episodes of recording it, like I feel like we're like kind of like thrown off a little bit. So
Yeah.
we'll have to think of something during the week. Well, we actually, maybe we'll do one of the ones David suggested a bunch for us. Maybe we'll have to do
Yeah,
one
that's
of
right,
his.
yeah.
Maybe we should pick one of
Yeah.
his. I feel bad. He's always sending us such good choices, and we're like, oh, we'll put that on the list. But then we sit here saying we're struggling to figure out something. But
Yeah.
But
So let's
yeah.
do that. We'll commit to doing one of David's
Yes.
suggestions.
yes,
Nice.
sounds good.
All right, guys. Well, we'll see you back here next week. Remember, don't go on any long drives with Ed Begley Jr.
Yes, or actually do anything to your son, Bobby.